Breaking news! With the NFL trade deadline fast approaching, there's a lot going on behind the scenes for the Baltimore Ravens. Stick with me until the end because I'm going to show you the possible moves that are on the table. Before you continue, make sure you've already hit the like button if you believe the Baltimore Ravens will make it to the Super Bowl this season. I totally believe in them. If possible, comment something like, "Go Ravens! We're going to the Super Bowl." I'm going to start by talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that is undefeated this season, making moves to fix their roster holes. And no, the Chiefs are not standing still. Even without a loss on their record, they've been tweaking, adjusting, and staying aggressive to keep their Super Bowl winning roster competitive. That should definitely give the Ravens front office pause, right? Now let's talk about our Ravens and what's at stake. Everywhere I go, I see fans talking about this, arguing about which side of the ball needs more attention. Some are adamant that Baltimore needs a big-bodied wide receiver. We're talking about a true X-rated receiver who can snag those contested catches on the high ball, giving Lamar Jackson a much-needed weapon to elevate this offense. Adding a receiver could be a game-changer, taking us to a whole new level of play. Imagine what our offense would look like if Lamar had a top-tier option like that to throw in the red zone. But not everyone agrees. There's another camp saying that defense is the real concern, especially our secondary. Let's face it, we're struggling in some key areas back there. Right now, Baltimore ranks last in some critical categories, like pass defense and allowing big 15-yard completions. That's a tough position to be in. Some fans think a solid cornerback or safety can help close those gaps, while others believe a dominant pass rusher is the answer to help apply more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. The argument here is that if we increase the pass pressure, it takes the pressure off our secondary, allowing the entire defense to play more aggressively. And then there's this feeling among Ravens fans that we can only go one of those options, an offensive or defensive upgrade. That's where I have to say, wait, just look at the Chiefs. They're undefeated, but that hasn't stopped them from making two recent trades, getting wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins and Michigan edge rusher Josh Uche. They're setting an example that even if their record looks great, there's always room for improvement. That's the kind of approach Baltimore needs to take. It doesn't have to be just one. We could add an offensive and defensive piece, maybe even more if we're willing to make the moves. I know some of you feel like Baltimore's history of caution at the trade deadline might prevent us from making those bold, multiple moves. Over the years, the Ravens have conditioned us to expect that they'll be conservative when it comes to roster changes. But here's where it gets interesting. If there was ever a time to go all in, it's now. We're sitting at 5-3, which is impressive given some of our struggles. But we have so much more potential if we're willing to think bigger. That Chiefs mentality, that's what we need in Baltimore. We should be aiming to not just make it to the playoffs, but to compete at the absolute highest level. Let's talk numbers for a second. The stats don't lie, folks. Being last in pass defense and last in long yardage completions allowed isn't a recipe for success. And it's a miracle we're sitting at 5-3, despite these defensive issues. It goes to show that our offense has had to outscore opponents in some games just to pull out wins. The Chiefs haven't rested on their laurels, even as reigning Super Bowl champs. With our issues on defense, could we really afford to do any less? Coach John Harbaugh has received criticism lately for not taking a more proactive stance in addressing both offensive and defensive holes. Decisions like benching Marcus Williams have raised eyebrows, with fans wondering if these moves will help us or if we need more impactful additions. Harbaugh has made some smart calls in the past, but this trade deadline could be one of his biggest tests yet. Ravens fans everywhere are holding their breath to see if our front office can match the aggressiveness of the top-tier teams like the Chiefs. We've missed a few Super Bowl windows, but this one, we still have a chance. Let's not let it slip away again.
All right, Ravens flock, now it's your turn. What do you think we need the most? Should the Ravens be bold and bring in both a pass rusher and a wide receiver? Or do you think we need to focus on one side of the ball? Let me know in the comments what you think. Now that we're off the subject, we need to address a few things about what happened last week against the Browns and what's to come as we head into this home showdown against the Denver Broncos. The Ravens were favored to cover a 9.5-point spread set by FanDuel, but we know that didn't happen. And sure, we didn't get the win, but there's plenty to analyze as the Ravens look to defend M&T Bank Stadium in their next matchup. Since Lamar Jackson became the face of the franchise, the Ravens are actually undefeated against Denver, with a 2-0 record. The last time we met, it was an intense and unforgettable matchup, where Lamar went down with a season-ending injury, but Tyler Huntley stepped up to pull out a wild 10-9 win with just 31 seconds left on the clock. Now Denver is coming in with a new look, saying goodbye to quarterback Russell Wilson and embracing Sean Payton as the head coach. It's safe to say that the Broncos we face this week are miles away from the last team we beat. Now let's break this down position by position, because Ravens fans, we need to talk about what we're seeing on the field. Starting with the offense, and of course Lamar Jackson. We're giving him a B+ here. Most quarterbacks would be thrilled with a 335-yard turnover-free day, but we know Lamar has held himself to a higher standard. He made some game-changing throws under pressure and gained a lot of yards on the ground. However, he missed some open targets and struggled to find the right reads before the snap. Lamar is solid, no doubt, but with holes elsewhere on the roster, he's being pressured to near perfection to secure a win. Now, looking at the running backs, we're sitting at a B. Derrick Henry had a 39-yard run in the second quarter, but beyond that, he averaged just 3.4 yards per carry on his other attempts against a solid Browns front. Justice Hill didn't fare much better, and while he had a decent 14-yard reception, he struggled in pass protection. This performance is tricky to fully judge, however, with our offensive line showing up inconsistently and the game plan leaving room for improvement. For the wide receivers, we're going with a C+. Despite an injured ankle, Zay Flowers battled through it to catch 7 passes for 115 yards, moving him up to 11th in NFL receiving yards rankings. Nelson Agholor managed to score the first touchdown on Denzel Ward, but a dropped third-down pass later stalled a promising drive. Rashad Bateman, after an early 28-yard catch, went quiet with multiple drops later on. Moving to tight ends, they earned a B+. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely were reliable with 9 catches for 83 yards. But in the run game, they had challenges moving the line forward, especially against stacked Browns boxes. Charlie Kolar and Patrick Ricard only saw 21 snaps combined, which limited their blocking impact. Now the offensive line has some explaining to do. We're giving them a D+. They allowed pressure on 41.9% of Lamar's dropbacks according to Next Gen Stats. That's way too high, and they failed to dominate at the line to open lanes for the run game. Tyler Linderbaum had a costly penalty in the second quarter, but otherwise held it down in pass protection. This line has got to step up if we're going to see more success on offense. Let's shift gears to defense. The defensive line took a C. Injuries to Brent Urban and Michael Pierce left us thin, relying on Travis Jones, who was also limited by an ankle injury. Nnamdi Madubuike and Broderick Washington made plays, but their endurance waned, reducing their impact on Jameis Winston late in the game. Edge rushers came in at B. Kyle Van Noy delivered a strong all-around game with key stops, but Odafe Owe's early season impact hasn't been there lately. Yannick Ngakoue has held up his role in the pass rush, while Tavius Robinson took quality reps on the interior after Urban and Pierce exited. So here's the big question for all of you in the flock. Are the Ravens dealing with just a rough patch here, or are there serious adjustments needed in Baltimore? Drop your thoughts below. What needs to change to keep us in the win column? Go Ravens!